Frogland Town Hall. Thank you all for hopping in. For those new here, this is our monthly retrospective looking at Good Ribbit Productions, the company behind the Notorious Frogs of Frogland. We are going to review the progress we've been making over the past month, look at what we're going to be tackling over the course of the next month, and chat about a few things that may have come to light over the last town hall. So, for those who haven't been familiar with the project, over the past 2 years now, we've been building the Notorious Frogs of Frogland together with the community. As of August of 2021, we released 10,000 NFTs, the Notorious Frogs. And from there, we started to bring on board some game development talent to build out the Dragonfly Social Club as a vertical slice of a larger world that we want to build out as the metaverse. Throughout that, we've been working with our community to develop out a number of aspects of lore and of gaming. We've released recently the Total Recall minigame, an award-winning minigame that shows some of the pre-story towards this larger world that we're building. We've produced some smaller pilot episodes of a short-form radio drama with characters all contributed from the community. And we've done our first little mini-series of the Total Recall game, which I've already touched on. Our community has been incredibly helpful. Throughout this, we've been co-developing a lot of the content, the lore, and the artwork that you see inside these games. And we've been building in an iterative capacity where we have been opening up the development process to some extent. And that's one thing we want to talk about specifically on this town hall. You'll see we have a new face with us on the stage today, a fine gentleman called Keith, who Matt is going to give a little catch up on what is happening over in LA. So I'll pass over to Matt.
Yeah. Hey, good to see you guys. Keith is a friend of ours who's responsible for running the art department, and he's been the person who's been in charge there. And so we want to bring him on today to just talk a little bit about what we're doing. So Keith, you want to give us a quick intro on what art department is?
Yeah, thanks guys. Does everything sound good? Am I good to go?
Yeah. Perfect.
Great. Well, thanks for having me. It's been a minute coming, I feel. You guys have been doing so much work behind the scenes. It's been quite the adventure and journey to see all of this go down and how it's kind of come to this point. And I feel it kind of speaks to a lot of people that I've surrounded myself with in the last couple of years, and where we've met on a certain level and we understood what is possible, and we wanted to play and explore and build cool stuff across kind of industry and platform, and that kind of thing, technology, art, culture, all intertwined in various aspects. And you guys really have done well with cultivating and keeping this community so strong. So I keep my hats off to you, because you can have great projects, but if you don't have community, it's worth nothing. And you guys have maintained and really kept a very strong, positive, forward-moving community from Frogland and the sub-communities. So for us as the art department, and also my background with you guys, it's made sense to just kind of now come to a point where we're joining forces and working together, moving forward, building cool stuff, and having our physical space to complement that, and giving home to some of these projects and brands, I feel, in the physical world. It's always helpful. So that's been good. Yeah. But yeah, just a quick overview. In short, the art department essentially is a creative studio. It was a joint venture of worlds where Greg, being the original founder of the art department and merchandising brand, essentially had this building, and we were working together, a bunch of curating and building stuff, and we were in the process of merging, which is my creative agency, and it's now been built into the art department. So we have this physical studio space that acts as a gallery and event space, but we brought the culture component together with that space, myself and Greg originally. And what's kind of been a vision of mine for the longest time is to create this safe creation space for artists and creatives to come and produce their art and the cool stuff that they get into and get down with, and having the ability to then give them tools to help them create a market and build markets for their art and their products that they're producing, right? And it goes across so many kind of avenues, and we're very realistic of what the work is that needs to be done to move it forward and that kind of thing. But the ethos and the central kind of anchor of the whole art department is build your brand here with us, right? And this is with creatives coming in and kind of leveraging each other and each other's communities and this overarching community that we've brought to them to have the ability to, one, get their voices and their brands out a bit more efficiently, and also discover new people and bring them into what they're busy with, right? Like if it's a gay price collection, but someone comes to the art department and they see Eddie Gangland image on the wall, or Adam Blux, or Z Hovac, it's like they get exposed to different artists when they come to see one within our community and also our physical space. So I think it's been, you know, what started as a creative agency / studio is growing into a much bigger opportunity for us to create an incubator for creatives and have the ability to build infrastructure and co-share production and creation with them, and just build together. I think in a very decentralized way, but without screaming decentralization. It's purely more giving the power back to the people, essentially, in the right way. It's not like a sleazy, weird, oh, we're a record label, like take 70%. Like it's just definitely not that. But yeah, it's a fun space. I'm just babbling, so you need to.
Yeah, no. So I think this was, what was interesting about this when you were originally explaining this to me. And so, like, I mean, we've been working together for a pretty long time, off and on, and connecting anytime we go to Web3 events and things like that, and just kind of sticking together with what everybody's working on. But when we came out to Los Angeles in July and saw this on the ground of like how all of this had cobbled together from the different connections that you have in the industry and that Greg has in the industry, and all the different artists who were bringing everything to the table to make this happen, it just immediately clicked, because it was so similar to what we've been trying to do in Frogland with co-creating content with the community directly, right? And really helping, seeing ourselves as our role as cross-pollinating and connecting people with each other, and not necessarily having to do that in an extractive way, right? And making sure that artists and creatives can keep the majority of the ownership around the work that they produce. And so this was it was a very obvious connection for us to make, to bring Sapo Studios in there and help those guys participate in this world, and just immediately get access to so much and be able to contribute back to that as well. And so, like, the model absolutely makes sense in this new world, and to the point where Lolly and I were motivated to come out here and spend some time to help with the art department, getting some of the back office stuff up and running with some of the things that we're very good at too, so we can also participate in this as a company. And Frogland can both contribute and benefit from this ecosystem that's growing here, and Ed's coming out to visit too. So
I mean, just having a space where like-minded humans can come together to human together is massively valuable, and just a great way to create meaningful connections. That's a good place to start building anything new, any new creative endeavor, and connecting different people who otherwise wouldn't have met.
I think an incubator, an accelerator, as you call it, Keith, is such a great and a needed thing in Web3, because when you put it that way, I think back to the best times I've had in Web3 and the most valuable connections, and they've always been at things like the Bright Moment Gallery, or at these house parties, or at these little local events that weren't big, sort of massive, great big LA convention center events. They were little sort of meetups. So I mean, I'm desperately looking forward to being back there. So literally 3 days, we'll be back in town. We'll be there for at least a month or so. I'm looking forward to getting stuck back in, because it's been far too long. But yeah, I mean, it is that whole idea of being able to enable just with access to more people, and where you're always able to create greater stuff together than you are alone.
Yeah, and experiment too, right? And try new things and see what works and what doesn't, and try to grow an audience around everything that we're building.
Yeah, and I mean, it's so interesting because I've spent so much time there, and because it's such a great location. So for you guys who don't know, it's just off Sunset on Holloway Drive. Like we just across State Social, and it's prime location for retail, right? But what that also means is seeing that it's a creative studio. So what we do quite intentionally every other Friday or so, we have a freestyle Friday. And all that is essentially is a gathering of friends of the art department / and or our resident artists. So people come like Pat Dimitri, Kat Nolte, Television, like all these people come and hang out and they make their art. So you'll have a guitarist and a painter doing stuff upstairs. You'll have a DJ and Chris doing screen prints downstairs, and another bunch of artists sitting doing art, Remo, or these people on the outside in front of the shop on our little patio that we've set up there, right? So it becomes this organic vibe. And it's like, if you don't know, you don't know. And a bunch of people that walk past are like, what are you guys doing? And we're like, we're human. We arting. Yeah. This is people doing art. This is the art department.
We're just making shit. See what happens.
It's just like having the ability to create that space, to see the magic unfold when people get into a space where they nerd out on each other's art and presence, and they see the opportunity to link each other up going, I want to shoot a music video this weekend. We have the art department. You're a videographer. I need a video. This person can make the art. How do we monetize that with the art department? Structure it some way, and it goes to market. And we all get paid when it gets sold type thing. Like that's kind of the models that we are trying to elevate throughout these meetings and stuff, but not in a pushy way. We're not telling people, you need to do this. We're saying, you could do this, and you probably should. But they get to play with each other and determine where that goes from there. So it's interesting to see the natural collaborations and the experiments, like you said earlier, that come out of it. It's extremely playful, it's silly, thoughtful, and yet very effective. And I think there's a lot of very interesting content. When people see what we have been working on, when it goes to market, everyone's going to start really paying attention, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, I'm super excited about this, obviously. And so I think what also might be useful here is like if people in our community understand where you come from, Keith, and like your background, why did you end up here and how did you end up here?
Yeah, I mean, just to keep it short, so I grew up in South Africa, and I was always very attached and close to hospitality, restaurants, hotels, nightclubs, and entertainment as a whole. Very much grew up in a very interesting social dynamic, crossing paths with loud music and cool vibes. So then as soon as I turned 18, I left and I went to the UK. I kept playing DJing in clubs. We were doing security guarding on a TV show called Big Brother. And I saw the people making art for the games on Big Brother, and I was like, I can do this. This is the kind of thing I can do. So 10 years after that, I'm in South Africa, and I'm executive or supervising producer of Big Brother Africa. And I did 7 seasons of that, where I essentially write the script of Big Brother. I design all the games, the whole show, everything, the way it operates.
Yeah.
And that's my career at that point just then transformed into, in my early 20s, I'd say earliest 20s, I started making TV shows, right? Like I just, big game shows, MasterChef, Survivor, Big Brother. And it's all the design elements, creating the worlds, getting the art department, like literally running departments called the art department for my entire career, because essentially it means just aggregating the best specialists in the field of creation and getting them to do stuff that we think out and we need to transfer into a reality set, which is suitable. So yeah,
when you were
gamified reality.
something that I found very interesting and very relevant to some of the stuff that we do is like how this stuff gets constructed, because these reality TV shows are, they're unscripted in a certain sense, but they're also not entirely unscripted, right? And so can you talk a little bit about how that works and why that's relevant to some of the things that we're doing now in Web3?
Yeah, I think people need to understand you can think things just happen organically, which they do, but there's always something that nudged it in that direction, right? Nothing is 100% predictable to the outcome, but it's 100% a possibility that you can influence it, and having the notion that you can influence it. So there's a lot of thought that used to or does go into programming when it goes to how the beat and the flow of the programming goes, how it makes you feel, how you want to make other people to feel. And I think the psychology behind that's very important, knowing on what level you work with humans and how you trigger them to become their better selves, or have certain triggers you can give them to push themselves in a positive manner as opposed to a retractive or scared manner. And I think when it comes to working with talent and artists, that's kind of my whole goal, where we need to be very intentional and authentic with what we are creating, because that translates extremely well. And I think that's the biggest thing to take away from it. It's like we can influence how people feel by the vibration of our communication. Because if we believe what we are saying or selling or pushing or communicating, it will inherently have a positive effect on that, right? Yeah. So we work with that kind of ethos in the back of our head and trying to steer it in that way. But yeah, I think it's very important to take note of.
So I can totally think I hear the DJ element of your earlier years and background as you speak about the journey, the emotional journey, and the flow. And that's the whole thing of like a DJ can't just throw banger after banger track. Even if it feels that way, there's like the points where people are getting down and grooving, and then it's a little bit more chilled, and then it winds up again and it breaks. And anyway, so and it just sounded very much those kind of terms that you're using when you're thinking about the emotional journey and the flow in a show, and like that's kind of translated somewhat to the art department as well, in terms of the experiences you're thinking about people going through there. Just interesting to hear it from that, hear that come through.
Yeah, I mean, Matt and Andy's been there for a minute now, seeing what can only be perceived as chaos from the outside in. And I think there's just so many layers to it. Like we can't undo like the 6 last months we've had that space. And we've had thousands of people come through. Like we've had really unique experiments that myself and Greg have initiated, and like things that I've been trying, and different hours of the days with different participants and like different scenes, because the art department, it's a big blank canvas, and we have the ability to transform and change it on the daily, literally. And it's happened where for months on end, it stays the same a day, and then the shop front changes, the art configuration changes, digital becomes physical. Like it's a whole journey in itself. So it's interesting to see its evolution, where we kind of just starting to sharpen up and tighten up the infrastructure, so we have all these kind of fluid operational integrations, right, where creatives can work amongst each other, incorporate each other into the content or art that's being created on site without managers or facility people. It's like when you're in there, you're in the studio, you take responsibility, you get all the tools to play with, and you take ownership of it, right? Like we're not kids, we're just playful grown-ups. So it's assume the space, own it, feel like you are there, and enjoy it for what it is. And I feel that's just the flow component, as you speak of. There needs to be this understanding of nothing can be overly planned, It needs to just organically happen. The best moments happen when you don't expect it, right? It's just people doing what they do, and they're not trying to force a scenario. And then that's when magic erupts.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I was getting at with the pointed questions around constructing these types of games, right? Because you're not necessarily trying to force something to happen. You're just creating the circumstances under which something can evolve organically, right? And like that's a particular type of gamification, I think, that maybe doesn't quite get as much attention in the crypto space, and probably should, just because that's one of the ways that it becomes a lot easier for people to participate once they see that start to coalesce together and people having a good time with it, and it becomes very supportive rather than being extractive.
Yeah, I'm just looking at this the website or the deck that Andy made, and I'm just like, it sends me down memory lane, right? Like that Sheila Gashi show, the Portal of Healing. This show was done a few weeks ago, and it's called the Portal of Healing by design, because by that point we've had so many people host events and we produced so many shows and events. By that point, we just needed a big spiritual cleansing. And we used this as a great excuse, and it was so moving. We just knew that from this weekend and the show onward, we will never have the same existence. The studio won't be the same. The art department, us as humans, it was life-changing. It was, you guys were there for the first time also that weekend. It was, Sheila just had us all in tears because it was so moving on an emotional level. And I think it was also a coming of understanding where it's like, oh my God, we're not chasing to do anything. We're doing it. It's like, it becomes a very different mindset when, if you as a serial creative, you feel like you need to do stuff for a specific outcome, it becomes a bit, I think you can burn out. And I think the fun factor kind of drops off. When you're doing something because you feel you're chasing it, the fun doesn't last. When you're just doing it because you can and you want to, that's pretty much all you need. And I think this was a big weekend where that kind of changed for me as a person, where I was just like, oh my God, I'm so grateful. Here we are. We're doing it, crushing it. People are having fun. Art's being made, and I'm crying.
Yeah.
That's great. Like, it's pretty much, then it was like, okay, cool. It's real now. So it's good.
I'll say I've got serious LA FOMO from already the stories before of hearing what's going on, but seeing what Andy's sharing here in these images, it looks really, really cool. And I want to come see it in person.
Yeah. And so, we need to make that happen, of course. But like, if we can bring this full circle a little bit and talk about, potentially where this can go with Frogland, because like you just said, Keith, there's intentionality between the action, but not necessarily in the outcome, right? And so like, we have this big organization and network of different people and individuals. And so like, for us, like, part of the value here is to just be at that table and participate in this as community members, but also like we have a lot of really awesome content that we've been working on over the past few years that we'd love to showcase in this space, and we've talked a little bit about doing that. But what do you think, like, for a project like ours, which is more of a traditional like PFP style Web3 project, or something else like a Forgotten Rubens or a Bored Apes or something like that, what do you think like an engagement like that looks like through the art department beyond just like community support like we've been doing?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many good opportunities for us to kind of explore, and I feel creating a home base for like Frogland also, like we've also started incorporating the brand with the Suppo Studio guys and bringing them into the community space and allowing them to like distribute and create from there. And I think, having a physical building where community members know that they are welcome and they can participate and meet other like-minded communities that share the space inherently with the artists, that becomes a very good incubator for culture as a whole. Because now you're mixing in Web3 with artists, with Web3 artists, with technologists, with crypto people, with non-crypto people, with industry people. that you can go there and know that, oh, there's a Freestyle Friday happening. There's going to be 20 cool people regardless. And that in itself grows organically, but having something to associate with and having brand presence on the screens, having the mapping done outside, and having weekend or week-long evening takeovers and campaigns, right? Like, we have the ability, this is just a side note, but from a opportunity perspective, we can activate any of our brands on the outside of that building. It's in West Hollywood. It's one of the biggest billboards right off Sunset. We have a great projector. We map stuff on there all the time. So using that space as an opportunity to activate and maintain community and challenge them to also participate in the space and contribute to it, I feel that's what it kind of looks like from my end. It's like, that's where it becomes fun, right? Like having monthly meetings for certain brands or the Frogland community. We've done that. We're partnering with Hugs also, XYZ, Hug XYZ, and they're helping us to build profiles for all of our brand partners and the artist profiles. But they'll do monthly real-time events where they'll do programming with us, and people can free RSVP and come and start participating in more frequent community meetups. And because it's essentially a creative studio, it keeps the conversation and the dynamicness alive, right? Like, it doesn't fall stale just on technical ears or on crypto ears or blockchain or just art. There's conversations where people can talk about things they don't know of, and there'll be enough people in the room to educate them on that. So I think creating more sustainable long-term activations is what we're going to be focusing on, starting with 2024 and incorporating brands like Frogland, where it's like, you guys have a home. Every month there's a Frogland Friday, for instance, whatever that looks like. But having the community start deciding what they want to do in this space, right? And art department facilitates and helps them achieve that outcome. And we do a live stream, a party, a game show, a scavenger hunt. Like, having the ability to hunt public scavenger hunts around West Hollywood from our spot, it's so great. Like, you're in the middle and it's a circular motion. You can literally send people. We have affiliated partnerships with a lot of the businesses in the area, the Ziggy Hotel, Wild West, State Social. Like, there's a lot of cool things just to be done, right? Like, the area in itself needs a bit of culture, and I feel we have that. So pull me back.
Well,
I'm gonna keep rambling.
I know. No. It's awesome. It's great. I mean, we went a lot longer than I was expecting to, but man, thank you for coming on board. Thanks for constantly grinding and hustling as hard as you do, and for keeping us in touch with you constantly on what you're doing and what you're building, and helping us stay engaged with that. It's been very meaningful over the past couple of years. So, all right, Keith, you're welcome to stick around. We have some more content that we need to get through to talk more about project specifics, but thank you very much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. You guys are doing an absolutely great job, and I'm very grateful that we've started like doing more project elements and stuff together. I feel there's a very big part for you guys to play in this ecosystem that we're all envisioning and playing, and I think there's no world where it ever needs to be some sort of a hierarchy. Everyone's just eye level in the same pool, and we just strategize, formalize, and push it forward, all whilst painting the floors red.
I love it. I've got to say, I'm looking forward to getting back in and meeting up with you again. A few short days, and I'll be in West Hollywood.
Cool. Okay. Well, I'm gonna quit while I'm ahead. Have a great weekend. Rest of it. I'll see you guys soon.
Excellent seeing you, Keith. Thanks for coming on.
Catch you later. Nice. But yes, so I think a great point to jump off at. Certainly, we've noticed in the Discord something that we wanted to hop onto and to address. Game development. What has been happening, and what can we expect? And I think these are all very, very valid and reasonable questions. We have certainly been preoccupied over the past few months on some business development. That being said, I'm happy to say that we are going to be pushing out a biome. We're not going to tell you which one it is yet. We are going to say that this is still very early testing. This is something that we want you to work with us to find out what you want to do in these things, how you want to play them, what you want to play them on. Just basically help us go through the prototyping. We're going to try and get a schedule of, don't hold us to this, but maybe a biome a month over the next few months so that we can get all of the biomes out. Now, these are going to be experiences that you will be able to try out. And again, I can't stress, this is an alpha build, so these are very, very early. You will be accessing them over the website, though. So they're not going to be a downloadable fit client like the Dragonfly Social Club. They're going to be more like Total Recall, where you can play it on a browser. We will be releasing them over time. And again, we haven't said which one's coming first. We're still doing some internal final testing. But stand by, because, again, we're going to try and aim for about 1 month. You will need an LSD to be able to play these. For this very initial one, any LSD will allow you to play this first demo. We say demo because, again, there's going to be a lot more that needs to happen to it, but certainly there's going to be a bit of interactivity in there. And we're really looking for feedback more than anything here. We want to know what you like and what you don't like about it and what you want to see. And if you could help us iterate through what this is now to what it should be when it becomes your personal biome that you're able to roll around in, that is going to be very, very helpful. That being said, there is a little bit about the biomes I could probably pass over to Daniel, if you want to hop in, Gamma Bunter.
Yeah. So, I mean, as many of you have probably been aware, these things have been drifting around in the ether, 90% complete for a while, and a lot of you may have seen snippets of them, etc. But there are lots of little things to polish up and finish off that we are currently doing and have been doing to be able to actually make these shippable. That's both things in the actual biome, instead of just making it something you are flying around in a free mode, which is a bit weird, actually making it a walkable experience. And that makes a very big difference to how it feels, actually just walking through and actually being able to maybe have some small interactions in there, etc. Also, there's things like, Matt's been getting the continuous integration, continuous deployment going for that, which is the tech stuff for as shrimp and bugs and artists make changes to this, how can they quickly see those changes represented? Where can they see them and have it deployed, and review each other's work and see that it's working and that it feels good? And so there's a lot of little tech things in there for actually delivering this. So it's a combination of those things. So we've been adding the polish, also updating, some of the assets used, because some of these have existed for a while now in that 90% complete state. So in the polish, there's some things we go, ooh, I don't like that. Let's do that again quickly. And yeah, so but we are in the stretch for getting these actually into your hands now, and then start delivering on what we've been speaking about for we haven't in the last little while, but we've spoken about a lot in the past, which is starting to stitch these experiences together. As we get these out, going, okay, how do we put that together with the Dragonfly Social Club so that you can not just get into the biome from the website, but exit out from the Dragonfly Social Club into that experience? And how do we stitch Total Recall into that? So we're bringing, that's our focus on the dev side, is bringing all those disparate pieces together so that it starts to feel like a cohesive experience. So there's a lot of things there, not just the biomes, but other pieces, which we've had 90% done for a while and have just needed the polish at the launch and stitch. Mm-hmm. And that's the focus at the moment. So you can expect this to be something you can see and feel and touch soon.
Very nice.
Matt?
No, I mean nothing specifically. You nailed it. That was most of the pieces. I think. I think the one thing like that you did touch on there, which I do want to call out, is the CI process that we've set up. I think it's not to say that other game companies don't do this. I think what's unique about our approach is that since we're opening it up and doing the development in the open like this, everything's on the staging site. So we haven't even shipped any of this to production yet, or like the main areas, and it'll be in that state for a while. But what's cool about it, like you said, is being able to see the incremental changes come very quickly. And so I'm not quite sure how we're going to handle this. We're going to have to figure out the right comm strategy with the community on when we do updates. But as we push stuff out, you'll see changes almost live, in the sense that like you have to refresh the browser to get a new client, but within 30 to 60 minutes of something being pushed up into GitHub and tested, it ends up becoming live. So there's an iterative process there around the types of things that are coming out. And then what else is really interesting about that too is a lot of the effort we've put into automating those things is going to make it easier for distributing across a variety of verticals, right? And so we have a number of different target devices for different experiences, including mobile phones, things like Curve, VR, AR, desktop class PCs, all these different things. And most of that stuff has also been in that 80 to 90% complete stage where we just need to connect all those dots. And then if we say, for example, Total Recall is available in the Dragonfly in an arcade machine, and it's available directly on the website, and it's available on a 3D platform or product, and then also on iPhone and Android. Whenever we make an update or a change, it just automatically gets updated across all those different platforms, right, over the course of a few hours. And that's really powerful because it allows us to go a lot faster than we otherwise would, because we don't have to do any of that stuff manually. So I don't know. As a nerd, I'm very excited about that type of thing.
Right. And if we need it at some point, I did build something. I don't know if you remember, for switching versions.
Yeah.
There's a way to do that. So we can see if we want to expose that at some point and tell people how to do that. I also see we have a question here from Mr. Canario Ailman, who I probably know by a different and froggy name. Are we still working with DRI? Shall I take this, Matt?
Yeah.
Yeah. So cool. At the moment, the door's open for working together with them in the future, but they're dormant at the moment. There's a bunch of assets that they did deliver for us, but it's been a lot of focus on bringing these processes and competence in-house, having full control of those tools, and really building the skills internally. It's just not something we can completely outsource longer term, though there's definitely space to work with them and or similar people in the future. There's a great relationship there still. As such, we've also brought on some interns, and so we have been, tapping into new young talent as well, to help give us some extra hands and such when we've needed them, and identify interesting potential hires in the future for growth in the team as that becomes necessary.
Yeah, I think certainly DRI are an incredible team. And what we managed to get through with them, not only with the Dragonfly, but also with the biomes, has given us the assets that we now need to, as Piano said, internalize and build out to the point that we can create these much larger worlds. There's some interesting tech that we're going to be using this with, obviously with AI, but certainly with procedural land generation. What we now have are these sort of world-class assets that we need to do our hard work now. And so DRI are always there to work with us, but there is certainly a time and a place for them to be full force. But yeah, great team nonetheless, and what they've given us is ultimately what you're going to be playing in these biomes, just the added polish that we've been adding to it since. But,
Right, and there's also some other stuff that they worked on as well during our engagement with them, which we haven't spoken about, which at some point we'll look at, adding to the queue of things to polish and release, I think. I also see we have a question here about more of a statement, really hoping the alien backstory is an ongoing part of the world. Like, yes, that's like... We all love aliens. I mean, I don't mean everybody. I mean us specifically. I'm glad you do too. Shrimp and Bugs do as well. And them being, quite core on narrative and on art. Aliens are not going anywhere in terms of being disappeared as part of the elements of our world. Not every single thing that gets released is necessarily going to have an alien element, but I suspect a large percentage will.
This is my single favorite thing that's come out of us working in this open way, right? Like, we kind of like seeded it out there unintentionally. It just was like part of the story, and then because the community's gravitated towards it so much, and everyone likes the X-Files, like, it's very much turned into alien conspiracies as represented through frogs, which I love. It makes me very happy. It's very fun.
I just now got an image I've just got an image of was it Marco Zuccolo, the aliens guy with the massive hair on History Channel. And
I think something I guess like something we haven't also talked too much about in the past couple of town halls, just because we've had so many other things going on, is story, narrative, and lore, right? We have this framework that we've been working on for a very long time that makes it easier to hang some of these types of stories, and I would very much like to see this get released in the next couple of months, at least in parts, right? If we can, because I think that that's going to help people better visualize, how to get good things in and out of the AI, or how to create their own better stories and things like that, because content creation and production, just around all of the different types of things that we're building, is what the core business is here, right? Like in the case of the games that we're developing and Dream Reality and their incredible support of us in teaching us how to do this, showing us, being patient with us as far as like going through all the growing pains, and also learning from us from some of the enterprise things that I've brought to the table, or we've brought to the table, and all that stuff. Like, that's just one facet, but really, like, the whole point of these types of products is for people to have fun and have a good time, and find community and find voice, right? And for us, ever since the very beginning, a big part of that is making sure that the community can riff and contribute to that as well. And I think that in the past, certainly in the past 6 months, like the work with the AI tools that we've seen coming out of not just this project, but others, are just getting so much better that it's getting to the point where, like, that vision is really, it's becoming real, right? In the sense that, like, it's not just like, oh, the community is making cool stuff and like maybe we'll use it, but like it's part of the canon at this point, right? Like, and so like we're kind of, in a certain sense, our material is competing against everyone else's material as well for eyeballs, and that is an interesting like emergent trait, I think, of the way that we've been building. Ed, you look like you want to say something.
Wow, no, I mean, it makes me chuckle, because like we're always dabbling with the latest and greatest. And to me, it's always warming when the stuff that we talk about so long ago then materializes into the current thing. And it's reassuring to know that, again, like, so long as we're always on top of the latest trends of this space, but in technology as well, we're always going to be able to see how we can best leverage these. And I think we've demonstrated that quite a few times, doing products and demos of stuff that we've seen the space go on to adopt in a wider capacity. And so such an important part of what we need to do moving forwards is increasing an audience. We have a few new novel ways we're going to be trying to do that, but ultimately what we build is great, and we need more people to be able to see that. And I think this is an interesting thing that the art department brings to the table, certainly with us all being over in California, or nearly all. I know Gamma Bunty, you'll be there in spirit, but having so many of the founders over in California for so much time, these are all things that I think are going to help us be that catalyst to find a new audience outside of the people that are necessarily very focused on gaming or very focused on metaverse plays. So it's definitely, it's exciting. And again, seeing what's happening with AI, seeing the developments of everything with ordinals. We've got our fingers in many pies to understand what's happening in this space, to know when is the best time to be able to sort of integrate any of these technologies, these tools. And with AI specifically, this is going to make game development just a million times easier in any way you look at it. I saw a comment, obviously, of someone hoping to hop around an endless world to explore with their NFT characters, integrated into seamless gameplay. This is, 2 years ago, fantastic. You need $500 million to do that. Now you may only need $10 million, $100 million. These orders of magnitude that you're being able to save when it comes to development costs is just never before possible up until the advent of these new technologies. So procedural land generation, AI, these sort of NPCs, these scans, these large language models. So long as we sit on top of these things and we understand them and we know them better than most people, then we'll always be able to dabble with them and work with them and figure out probably how they're going to be adapted before most other people will. And I think that's something that sets this team apart specifically and makes it so fun to be working with these people, because it's a wild west. We know kind of what we want to do, and we know the technology is coming along, but we don't know exactly what piece of tech is going to be the piece of tech that's going to do it. But I don't know. I'm rambling again, but I really, it's just fun to see this stuff evolve.
I mean, it's one of the things that makes it also fun to work on this, right? Like, it's just so. There's so many different approaches and avenues and opportunities to be able to take. Like you said, it is hard sometimes to know how to pick the right one, but at the same time, like by getting to experiment with so many different things, like it just, our knowledge and understanding of how this stuff gets built is just, it's growing exponentially every day, right?
Well,
As a team.
I mean, like doing large procedurally generated worlds is something that could have been done for a long time, but filling that world with interesting content and characters and quests and all sorts, and having that be filled with items and stuff in the world that have animations, like that just wasn't possible in the past, and that kind of thing is becoming way more possible. I mean, I'm really excited for us with the biomes release as the wheels on that are greased and there are certain repeatable things that we don't need to redo for each time, such as for the CI, the continuous integration, continuous deployment stuff. As that pipeline is going smoothly and we have several more biomes to release, I'm very excited to dive back in on the AI stuff. Specifically with AI NPCs. I mean, we gave just a small demo a few town halls ago of like the demo we put together, and I'm really excited to work on that again, take that forward and iterate on it, because like that'll be a very fun tool to use in our world and to start exposing in some ways to people in terms of supporting character creation. But
yeah, I mean that gives it the depth, that world of depth, that lived in feel to it, right? Like you mentioned. So when you were talking there about the procedural generation in particular, the first thing that came to mind was Skyrim, right? So like Skyrim is a procedurally generated world, but then they went in and spent thousands and thousands of hours hand tuning different parts of it and crafting all those stories and everything by hand. And like when you compare that to to other worlds that may have been procedurally generated that don't necessarily have that same attention to detail, they can feel a bit stale after time, because you end up with the same patterns over and over again. And so we're floating around in Gen Chat this week around creating 3D models from 2D images and stuff like that, and some of the things that Snoop and Didi have been playing around with recently. I don't think it's that far off before these things become pretty viable as far as like being able to synthesize a world or an environment. Not necessarily 100% automated, but like one that's like to a point where it does actually feel compelling and engaging to actually be in there. It just doesn't feel stale. You know what I mean? I think that's a really, really interesting concept, even metaphysically. But yeah.
Okay. Wild technology.
I know, it's so crazy, right?
That being said, I know we're coming up to our hour, so if there is any other final questions from the audience? If you want to just stick them into Discord, or if you're here in the chat, feel free to add them into the chat here. Yeah, otherwise we could probably start winding it down because, yeah, I know we got some packing to do. We'll be heading out there. So Didi, Victoria, and myself will be there from the 8th of November for at least a month. We then have, we've been invited to the Beeple Art Studio in Charleston on the 16th of December. So we're looking forward to going and doing all of that fun stuff. Then, of course, Art Basel is around the corner.
Yep.
So yeah, it's going to be a pretty interesting, action-packed few weeks. So this next town hall should be a different location. A bunch of us are going to be together, so it should be a fun one. Maybe we can all share the same webcam.
Yeah, maybe we'll do a Sappa Studios podcast or something.
Oh, that's a much better idea. I love it. Of course, happy Guy Fawkes Day, I should say to everyone. It's Guy Fawkes, of course.
Yeah.
Let's
plug that into Deli 3 and see what comes out.
Yeah, I almost I now am feeling an itch to watch V.
I was going to say, I'm hearing the fireworks as we speak because I'm in the UK at the moment, and I can hear the fireworks popping off. Guy Fawkes, there we go. Awesome. Well, on that note, I want to wish you all a very good Ribbit. Thank you all for your continued patience and support. And yeah, we will see you all this time next month, if not beforehand.
Yep.
Ribbit.
Ribbit.
See you.
Ciao.